Theta and Vega are two extremely critical parameters in an option price. And Vega here measures the sensitivity of price to change in volatility. Very specifically, it measures the rate of change in an options price per unit change in the implied volatility of the underlying security. And implied volatility is the expected change in the price of the underlying security in the next 1 year. So, very intuitively, you can think of implied volatility as anxiety in the market. Whenever there is high anxiety or high uncertainty about what is going to happen about a price, the risk premium bloats up and that inflates the premium of the option. The option price increases. Now, this benefits a seller and this does not benefit a buyer. So, whenever you're a buyer, you want to buy into low implied volatility. Whereas if you're a seller, you want to sell when the anxiety is highest and the risk premium is highest. Let's ground this with an example. So, even a small change in implied volatility can make a very big difference to the profit and loss depending on whether you're a buyer or you're a seller. So, let's consider a scenario where the implied volatility is higher. So, here we consider a scenario where the Nifty spot is 10,900, the current price of Nifty is at 10,900, and we sell a Nifty call at 11,000. And the current implied volatility is 14.5%. DT stands for days to expiry. So let's say the days to expiry is 22 days. So this determines our call option and our put option price. Now, with everything else remaining the same, let's assume that implied volatility after a lapse of some time shrinks to 12.5%. Now, the option price, as you can see on the right hand side, the call option and the put option price both reduce significantly. Very specifically, both these option prices they shrink by 25.6 units. And this makes a massive difference on the profitability. So, a 25.6 unit drop in each option price is equivalent to 2.5% return on capital. With everything else remaining the same, the time remaining the same, price remaining the same, everything remaining the same, if only implied volatility varies, it can make a huge difference. So, as a seller, you want to sell when the implied volatility is high, and as a buyer, you want to buy into low implied volatility. And most of the time, the implied volatility is higher than the actual volatility. And if you think about it, this is very intuitive because usually the perception of risk or the perception of uncertainty tends to be higher than the actual scenario which plays out. And if you see here, this is the last 1 year plot of the implied volatility and the actual volatility in Nifty. So the red line here reflects the implied volatility on a day by day basis, and the blue line reflects the 3 day moving average of the actual volatility in Nifty. So you would notice here that most of the time, in fact, almost 90% and more than 90% of the time, the implied volatility tends to be higher than the actual volatility. So what does it tell us? It basically tells us that most of the time the option pricing, the option price is overvalued. So as a seller, this benefits because I want to buy something which is overvalued, and whenever some calm restores and the implied volatility shrinks, it benefits me as a seller. So the key takeaway on Vega or implied volatility is that as a seller, you want to sell when the implied volatility is high. And as a buyer, you have to look out and buy only in low implied volatility regimes. So that's it for Vega. In the next video, we will talk about Delta.